G'day folks, today we're having a look at another of Matchbox's 1980s reboxing of one of their 70s purple range kits, and this one is the Brewster Buffalo. It really shows Matchbox's aim. They produced a lot of the lesser known aircraft and made them broadly available through the massive manufacturing that they did. Through that we saw such aircraft as the Consolidated Privateer, the Fairy Sea Fox, so many others that may not have received the fame that so many other aircraft before, after and during the Second World War received, and this is a good one as an example of that. So, having a look at the box, it's the typical 80s Matchbox boxing with the somewhat sanitised artwork, the Roy Huxley artwork. This was quite different from the 70s boxing, which had all sorts of air battles going on and Zeros and more Buffaloes flying around and being shot down. But I believe that when Roy Huxley had to modify that one, it was easier to just paint a whole new Buffalo. So this is a bit different from the original boxing. On this side, it has Matchbox typical example of what it looks like if you build it and put the decals on but no paint. On the end, it's PK24, and you see what you're getting in the box when this was in a pile of them at the newsagent or the toy shop or the model shop. Information here, one difficulty point, so it's the easiest one, and this is copyright 1983. The other side is the same as the other end, is the same as the first one, but I took a big sticker off this. Now looking at the artworks, or not the artworks, but the variants that you could build up using the decals with this kit, we have a 488 Squadron Royal New Zealand Air Force aircraft from Singapore in October 1941. And we've got one of the Dutch East Indies Air Arm aircraft in the Dutch East Indies in December 1941. And both of these services used Buffaloes in fairly frantic fighting against the Japanese invaders, unfortunately unsuccessful. But this is interesting to see, and it did interest me at the time that you couldn't build up a US Navy version, one of the original Buffaloes. I think the modifications to the type for the overseas sales ones meant that they were slightly different, but you could also get Airfix versions and other brandings which you could do up in US colours. And the Finnish flew them as well, and they're represented by various later kits. So what's in the box? Here we go. The original 70s boxing, I think, had a bright red fuselage and kind of cream coloured wings, but this one is a far more sedate dark brown fuselage and green wings, almost camouflage colours. So you've got the two sprues as usual, as you'd expect. You've got the transparency. Not want to sit up. You've got the instructions, and somewhere in here we have the decals. So let's look at the instructions. Similar to the other ones that I've shown, as we have all seen. Front page has a black and white picture, a bit of prototypical information about the aeroplane and the specifications. Inside we've got some do's and don'ts and how-tos. We have the 8-step instruction. So step 1 is put the pilot on the seat. Step 2 is put the lower fuselage undercarriage area and the seated pilot in the fuse and put them together. Step 3 is build the various engine, cowling and propeller bits, put them all together so it can spin. Step 4 is you put all the assembled engine-y stuff on the front as well as some sort of component behind the pilot and the canopy. Step 5, you put the horizontal stabilisers on, tail planes, with the elevators. Step 6, all the wing bits go together, radio, mast, gun sight, they all go together, the wings on. Step 7, construction of the undercarriage. Step 8 shows putting the undercarriage in lowered, and it also has the variation where you could put it in with the undercarriage raised. Then on the side here you've got the list of the other kits available. On the back you've got a paint chart and how to do decals. And on the rear you have the paint chart, what colours, what components are, plus prototype information in other languages. Looking at the brown sprue, we have the fuselage sides, we have the undercarriage area in here, pilot seat, all very basic of course, plus the pilot, a couple of gun barrels I think, undercarriage components, tail wheel, and you have the, I'm guessing this might be an oxygen bottle from behind the pilot, not sure, the cowling ring, cowling sides, second sprue in green is mainly wings, as well as the fairly undetailed engine, spinner, propeller, what's that there? That might be the radio mast. Tail planes, horizontal stabilisers and elevators, and basic detail, but hey, these were Matchbox kits, they went together very nicely, and that'll do me. The transparency is fairly thick, but it painted up with all of that canopy framing, painted up okay. Looking at the decals, they're in pretty good nick from 1983 or thereabouts. As you said, the colours may be a little off, probably not up to today's standards, but they weren't bad. And we have the sticker there that would have gone on the stand if we had one. We had the Dutch triangles, and we have the RAF, or Commonwealth colour scheme for that era. Today we compare the Matchbox one with the other model Buffalo that I was able to find pretty easily. I know that Airfix did one, but I didn't see any of those where I was. This is the Revell. Early 80s, well I won't say boxing, bagging of the older, probably 60s kit that they put out. And so let's have a bit of a look at what's inside this one. I pre-removed the staples. Yeah, one thing about Revell and Airfix kits, you'd open them up and things would go everywhere. You might say that was part of the charm, or it might have been part of the irritation, I'm not sure. So we have a kind of sun-damaged instruction page, one page, prototype information and a bit of a marking layout on the front with grey and light blue, just as the colours there. On the back, general assembly information, glue part 1, cement part 1 onto part 2, blah blah blah, put it all together that way. Second step is all the wings and undercarriage. Third step, everything goes together. Now these decals have been in the sun for way too long, so they'll certainly not be usable, but that's what you got. And as far as bits go, you can see why, for me, Matchbox kits held far greater appeal. These are a bit flashy, lots of rivet detail, kind of awkward, but you know, they were what was available at the time. Fair bit of flash detail on, oh yeah, here we go. Looking at the fuselage, you can just see rivets, rivets, rivets. This comes with a stand and a semi-assembled propeller, and again more rivet detail, more detailed engine, but well, is it? And simpler cowl. So yeah, this was the other Buffalo that you could get. And these ones were some of my very earliest models when I was about 10. Not as good as the Matchbox one, but you know, for a kid for less than $1, they were pretty good. Fuselage sections were about the same size. Must have worked off similar drawings. But comparing the two, look at the Revell one. It's not really focusing, the old phone, but you know, you can see they're fine, but there's a lot of rivet detail. And then there's just the very basic panel lines on the Matchbox variant. So, yeah, that was two of what you could get back in the day. One thing I liked about Matchbox was they weren't afraid to have a go and try something different. Not only with unusual aircraft like the Buffalo, which would have been fairly unusual to a lot of British kids, but they didn't really replicate the variants of more popular aircraft that the other manufacturers put out. So instead of Battle of Britain Spitfires and Hurricanes, they had a Mark 9 Spitfire and they had a Mark 2C cannon-armed Hurricane. So these didn't fit into the Battle of Britain mould that so many other manufacturers had done. And there are so many examples of Matchbox trying different things. So the two-tone plastic bright construction was great fun if you were just starting out, but they were also a good blank canvas to work with if you wanted to put more detail into them. So this is just part of the appeal for Matchbox for me, and it's why I'm going to continue showing these models. Thanks, folks.